up last week, and I went, oh, I think I didn't see the picture, hadn't come up. It was you. Your voice came up before.
Yeah.
So distinctive.
Yeah, it's funny because I was listening to BBC Essex, and I was downstairs, Trevor, and I could just hear a voice. I thought, that sounds like Trevor Hart, but it was. I think Sadie Nine was interviewing you.
Yeah, I was on with her for about 10 minutes. I was on BBC Look East as well.
Yeah.
That Paul. That was nearly an hour's filming to get that 5 seconds. And they sent, believe it or not, they sent the cameraman down to Shoebury from Danbury, and his next job when he'd finished with me was to go up to Lowestoft. I hate to see what his fuel bills are.
Yeah.
Central journeys, eh?
Yeah. It's, well, when we had the measles epidemic nearly 2 years ago now, or 18 months ago, 2 years, lose track. The guy that came down to do that came down from Norwich. Do more miles than an away Southend supporter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
(1801). I did get confirmation actually that this was going ahead, so I was a little bit worried I hadn't had a response, but I got some, not from Ron but from Rebecca.
Pen to paper on the new signing, isn't he?
Here he comes. He's coming now.
Good work. Oh, it's walked away.
You seen who's on here?
Fine.
Hello, Ron.
Yeah, hiya.
Evening, Ron.
Evening, Ron.
Hi, Ron.
Evening,
Hi
Ron.
there.
How many do we have? A lot of people.
22.
22. I think that's.
How are you going to conduct this, Paul?
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people are on mute right now.
So I'm going to. Is Mark joining us, by the way?
No, you say you didn't need him, so I'm just speaking to him at 7.
Okay, perfect. All right. So what I thought I'd do, there's kind of 5 topics, Ron, and a bunch of questions have come in, and some of them sort of cover multiple points. And what I've tried to do is summarise each point, some sort of order. If I get it wrong, well, okay, we'll deal with that. And we've got a chat. Most people should have a chat window on the right-hand side. If you maximise your screen, the general idea, I think, is if you want to interrupt or ask a question, could you put something in the chat room? Then I'll stop rather than sort of a mid-flow sentence, because sometimes it's a bit difficult. I've not run one of these with this number before, so apologies if this doesn't go smoothly. But I sort of thought that if we get stuck on something and something just takes a while, maybe we park it and come back. One of the key issues is about communication, and I think we can perhaps make a start on that back to something. But
Sorry, Paul, I know you didn't want anyone to bat in, but we've got a few that haven't got video on.
Yeah, I can see that.
Chris,
okay.
James and Scott.
Scott did have video just now.
Yeah. Well, Scott has.
There he is.
Chris has.
There's Chris. So it's just James.
Yeah, James, are you there? Can you come on video?
Yeah, I'm here.
There he is.
Sorted.
I don't know if we're expecting anyone.
Look,
else.
I've said an hour, Paul, but if it takes longer, it takes longer.
Okay, but I'm aware of why you want it to be an hour, and that's perfectly reasonable, Ron. So let's try and get it going. Let's kick off and see what happens. In terms of this meet, as you know, I've been trying to get something sorted for a little while, and there's reasons why we couldn't do that. But so first of all, thanks very much for agreeing to meet. I'll start with summary of each point. So we've got 5 key issues: short-term issues and plans, a few things in there, Stadium and development, you won't be surprised to hear. Communication, this is a big bugbear for us.
Yeah.
And then the longer term issues. And then there's a couple of things that didn't really fit into that. So just sort of other. And I had team matters on there if Mark showed, but that's fine.
We'll keep it on there anyway, because obviously.
Yeah. Okay. And if there's time at the end, I'm sure it'll be good to chat. But let's go for it. So in terms of the first point, it's short-term issues and plans. A number of questions came in from individuals. So I've just got the sheet on the other screen, so I'll just go to that. I guess the summary is, what are you planning at the moment, this moment in time, in terms of the rest of the season, next season? I had a very specific point about, is football even viable for us at the moment? And, you know, kind of what happens if we go down? You'll probably say we're not going down, so that's good, but...
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. We're trying our best not to go down. Yeah,
obviously. But, and also season tickets, you know, it's around the time when you might be thinking about that, plus as last year's, you know, just generally what's happening at the moment, I think is the summary of that. And I've got some very specific questions from one or two others if we don't cover them. So if you'd like to sort of head off with that, we'll see where we go.
Yeah. Okay. So I think from the time, I want to go back really to put it into context. Phil Brown was a good manager, of football, and then for the most part, he was a good man manager. But he attracted people who, of some personality. He found the big players, people he wanted to work with for whatever reason. But of course, those people sometimes come back and bite you. And particularly when you have them in numbers, which he ended up doing, it caused a split in the camp. I'm talking about between the Simon Cox of this world, who was probably their spokesperson, to people like Ryan Leonard, who kept himself to himself. So there was a split in the camp. Fine when everyone's on the same page, but when it's not working so well, and Niall Ranger was part of that, and you'd be surprised to hear me say this, but not a bad person. He was just a bad timekeeper, and poor discipline. And as a consequence, for those who consider themselves to be particularly good pros, and I think Simon was one of them, and Anton Ferdinand, the fact that we, not so much because as soon as Bill Brown said he didn't want Niall Ranger went. But until then, he did want him. So we had a group of good people, and those people who are more vociferous in their speech, and it caused a split. But it caused a split, meaning that he lost the dressing room a bit, and a consequence, we lost that culture. Phil left, and I don't think to regain that culture that we enjoyed for 4 or 5 years, and prior to that, we certainly had it in Steve Tilson's day. We didn't have many people in Steve's day. In the year going up into the championship, I think we used 24 players. So it's a huge difference from where we are now. And it was a huge difference from where we were under Paul Sturrock. So when I was able to, I wanted to rid ourselves of those people, one who were too expensive and were not giving value because they were, in fact, I guess, using the club rather than working for each other. And of course, we had Chris Powell, who initially, I think, did bond people together, and they worked well for him. But of course, he got rid of all the captains. So there's the balance between having, captains on the park, which we don't have many right now, and it's something that Mark has always been wanting to address, and certainly there have been people under his recruitment policy that he wanted and hasn't been able to attract yet. So I think it's taken a couple of managers from Phil to where we are to get the right culture in the club. I admit it's my mistake keeping Kevin. I've said that publicly. Not that Kevin's a bad person. We know he's not a bad person. He's a good person. But equally, he's not a dominant person. And you do need somebody who's prepared to put the head above the parapet and be the manager. I know it's a risk taking on Mark, but I sense that the basic ingredients of that he's got them all, but he didn't necessarily have the experience in Football League. And he learnt the hard way initially by passing out from the back, and a little bit trial and error, and he's kicked off the wrong foot. So he's been learning on the job. So, but I think what we have managed to do by eradicating all those people who didn't care, and we couldn't afford anyway, couldn't afford them in League One, let alone League Two. They went. Some of them have cost me a lot of money to get rid of them. Anton Ferdinand was the worst, in fact. But we've ended up with a group of management, and I go beyond Mark in saying that, but the people he brought with him, all singing from the same song sheet, and all good people who really care about whether we win or lose. And he's attracting people as best he can, which is difficult, because if you start off the team this year with a losing culture, it's difficult to attract people. So we've certainly found it. The most recent one, John Akindi, which was frustrated all of us to hell. John Akindi will never be offered a contract like it was offered on the 31st of January or 1st of February, ever. He's probably never been offered anything like it before, and certainly not be offered anything like it again. So he took the choice to stay there and be a bit part player with Gillingham, when actually we could have built the rest of the season around him, and perhaps to some extent he would have continued his career in a better fashion if he'd stayed with us for next year and also the year after. I didn't want to do that. When it went, I was actually, I can't say I was pleased about the decision, because I was doing it to keep us up this year. Because, you know, I see if we get through this year and stay in the Football League, we'll be able to rebuild next year in a much stronger way, because we start on the same platform as everybody else, and a lot of things will come onto that, stadium, etc., will come into fruition. So I think that's where we've been. Where we are now, I think we've strengthened, but we can't. People say, well, why can't you get a striker? Of course we all want a striker, someone who actually scores goal on a regular basis and puts many of the opportunities that we see week in, week out away, which we haven't been able to do. But people also have to understand that you can't attract it. I mean, like John Akindi I can tell you that his contract would have competed with the likes of Ferdinand, Ranger, Cox, and when we were vying in the playoffs for League One. And yet we're at the bottom of League Two, and he still didn't take it. He's paid too much at Gillingham, by the way, so that's one of the reasons probably they want him off the books. It is difficult. Kelvin Andrew has been on our radar. Not that we particularly, I mean, Kelvin Andrew, I'll talk about publicly because he probably won't come now. But we must have been talking to him since October. Then he got a relatively minor strain, but he wouldldn't join us and come and join the group, even though we agreed terms, until that had healed up. So he stayed in the north of England. Probably not what we want in terms of goal scorer, but it's what we wanted in terms of holding up the ball for maybe Sim Akinola to be the person who might score the goals, and others. But anyway, he didn't come. And there've been others that have come through on our radar and not been able to be secured. So I think we've ended up in a place in the first week of February with a strong midfield, a more steady back four, not five, in my view. And providing he maintains that sort of shape of back four, and whether it's 2-3s or 4-2, we're not badly placed. And of course,
Ron, can I just interrupt? Whilst that's interesting, and thanks for that, that wasn't really the point of the question. The point of the question was to do with finances and survival short term.
okay, well,
very specifically with being able, and what are you planning? I mean, you know, we might go down, we might not. You must be planning for that. What does that mean?
not planning for that, because that planning will only ever happen when we get to the end of the season and know where we are.
But you do have to plan.
Well, I have said that
I have to ask people for money, don't you? So how are you going to do it?
Well, I don't. What do you mean ask people for money?
Well, season ticket money is expected before end of season normally, isn't it?
No, I don't think we're going to be looking at that.
But that's the kind of thing we want to know. And what's happening with the season ticket money paid out last year? You know, where there was a sort of a sum.
They still got about 100 and bit thousand. They're giving it to us on the drip. The next tranche is due in March, and the final tranche is due in April.
Sure. And what about the supporters who probably were expecting to get back to games when the money was paid?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe some of those supporters who paid their money will come. Who knows what Boris or the government will do come March? Yeah. Well,
so you don't have any plans or thoughts or even, I mean, what some of the other.
Well, I don't know what the supporters are thinking. Whether they feel they should that money should be repaid to them.
I should imagine plenty are. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it makes it even more difficult to run a football club when you've got no support and you've got demands of people saying sign somebody to make sure we don't go down.
I completely agree, Ron. But there you are. Yeah, that's what you're trying to do, and all we're trying to do is help and understand these issues. I mean, just sort of ignoring them doesn't really.
Well, no one said anything. No one has said.
Well, I'm telling you that people will want their money back.
All right.
People will want some money back.
Okay.
I mean,
the majority.
Maybe that's the surprise. Maybe that's one of the things we'll park and we'll come back.
I've had not solitary email about it, and I don't think Reece has either. But I suppose I think we can understand that. No one could forecast what was going to happen in terms of the perpetual lockdowns.
No, completely. I get it, but the reality is some people won't give a monkeys about that.
No, I get that, Paul, and I find that upsetting at times when I get, and I do get perpetual demands. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And then as soon as £10 is wanted back, they say, "Can I have £10 back?" And yet they expect £1 million to be spent.
Hugely sympathetic, Ron. I am, but I'm just, I mean, I don't know how many people will want their money back, but it'll be more than one. There'll be a few, and you have to have a strategy for it.
If people want their money back, then we will have to cash flow that through next season. It's a bit like the Inland Revenue. You've given the Football League a moratorium for 12 months, but now that comes to an end this month, and they want that moratorium money paid over some years. So the government is saying to football clubs, you can pay us over some years. Now, I know one club, not going to disclose who it is, but they extended that credit a year ago over 4 years, and then immediately broke what they'd agreed. So that's why when we were embargoed, and I was going to come off embargo, I couldn't do it when I wanted to, because we were one of the clubs that were still indebted to the HMRC between the petition being paid and having a relatively small sum of money, 150,000 outstanding. So I couldn't get the benefit of that moratorium. So one time when we met, I couldn't then do it. So I had to find another 150,000 on top of everything else to keep the ship steady. And I think that so if people say they want their money back, I hope they're not going to say, "Can I have it back tomorrow?" The better thing might be to discount next season's season cards when we know where we are.
So I agree, but perhaps some of us can help you do that. One of the things we'll come on to is communication, and I mean, one thing you said there was you know, we sat down at a meeting and I was going to get us out of embargo, then I didn't. Well, communication, you know, there was very good reasons why you couldn't do that, but no one understood them at the time. And all that happened was this hugely toxic problem we have with the protest group in particular gaining traction, and then lots of toing and frying and threats and potential lawsuits. It was just, you know, you could have just said. I really just think that's all it would have taken. But anyway, look, we've probably done this one, but before we move on, have we covered everything, guys, from the questions, or even, I mean, some things not directly, but I think you can infer the answers from what we said.
Can I say, just to wrap up what I was saying, I'm just trying to say that I think we've got to a better period of stability on the pitch, but it's taken a long time to do that. And I think that people say to me, and I don't get a lot of these conversations, but I'm always happy to have them. You know, what's gone wrong? Well, there's such a multitude of things that have gone wrong. I thought that Chris Powell was a good manager, but I mean, he's certainly a very good person. But his signings, most people have supported them. But you've got to look what history has now taught us. Sam Manton was his first signing. Is playing, I don't know, probably 9 leagues beneath where he was or something. I mean, I don't know where he is, but he's, most of them haven't actually, are not now competing in the Football League. And I think that was, people say, well, why don't you stop it? Well, it's not for me to stop the signings. I support him either financially. Yeah, of course we do independent due diligence on them, and Ricky Duncan's role has been expanded to shadow all signings, not just at the academy, but also the senior level as well, so that I have a further, if you like, independent view of what's coming down the chute. But sometimes things are done urgently. And Chris signed 6 or 7 players very, very quickly. And I think there were errors in there. Mainly, my biggest criticism would be their injury record. But I was assured at the time that that was something of the past. And anyway, whatever it was, we had, and he had tremendously bad luck. I mean, tremendously bad luck. I mean, Chris started off with like a whirlwind with something like 52% win rate. And with a couple of 1-0s, he might have even had 60%, which is phenomenal. Phil Brown was, I think, around about sort of 38, 39%. So, you know, he probably had the ingredients to be a great manager, but he had bad luck. And I think that cost us dearly. And right, we just stayed up that year by the skin of our teeth. But the consequences of that and those expensive people being there, there's reasons why we are where we are, but I do think we've got a better platform, and if we can survive this year, I think the management team that we've got will make us well placed next year. I don't really want to talk about relegation because we're doing all humanly possible to make sure it doesn't happen.
Okay, thanks. Let's move on to the next point. Maybe come back at the end if there's any time. The next kind of topic is stadium and development plans. And I mean, what's the current status and thinking about the development mix? I mean, it seems to me that building a statement in the middle of a housing estate with not much else around is probably not where we were. And I can't.
What do you mean not much else around? We had a retail park as
well, yeah, but yeah, we did have, but we haven't now. So where are we? It just, to my mind, nowadays, if you look at stadium developments, they're not put in the middle of housing estates, and so why are we doing that? I know why we're doing it because
sorry, they are.
Okay, but
look at Brentford. Brentford's enabled by 1,000 houses.
My point is, it still doesn't feel right to do that. So all I'm saying is that it now, or is it likely to change again?
No. It's absolutely cast in stone. It is going to happen, and it is going to be enabled by nearly 2,000 units. Maybe I should send you a master plan. We haven't actually, put these things out there publicly, but you could look on the portal.
The enabled word obviously is something we've discussed many times over the years, and
let's clarify that for everyone. What does enabling development mean? It means that development has enabled the capital cost of the stadium. That's what it means. No
okay, so we've talked about enabling the future of Southend United, and they're clearly two complete different things. And I think the big concern for most of the questions that
they're one of the same, but you tend to want to limit it to a narrow band. They're one of the same because Southend, and this is a big point. A lot of people say, "Well, what if we go down?" It would be disastrous for me, the club, and everyone on this call. But it's not the end of Southend United, is it? What I've been doing is building the future of Southend United. The stadium's not going to finish just because if we were in the National League. It would be very well placed for the future. And you know what? When 70% of people on this screen, and maybe more, are dead, Southend United and the new stadium will still be there. So I don't think you can look at it at a moment in time and say, "Oh, Jesus Christ, Ron Martin got it wrong." I don't want to get it wrong. I want to say,
but I'm not saying you. We're not saying you are.
No. I just said, but
the concern of the fans, Ron.
It's the end.
The concern of the fans is that when we get there, if we get there, and you confirmed that the mix will not change, when we get there, what is it that enables Southend United to not only survive but prosper? Because before, the suggestion was that it was retail. Well, the retail's gone.
But Paul, the retail wasn't the income from the retail in total that was going to the football club. The enabling retail development would have been sold in the main part to create a capital sum to build the stadium, so it has no debt. That has not changed. It's just now residential. You and I have shared why we will not now be building a hotel from which the club would have benefited, but all other facilities in the stadium, all that income goes to the benefit of the football club, and that means that large spaces of leisure space will go to benefit the football club. I did talk to you about that 20,000 square feet at the front of the stadium, which was there in the retail park for maybe, primarily it would be a gymnasium. That's quite a lot of income in that box. I've decided to do it. I wasn't going to build it because it doesn't necessarily sit within a residential scheme or residential development scheme, but it does benefit the football club. And therefore we're now going to build it. The income from that will go for the benefit. So there's a lot within that stadium, because it's commercially driven, to benefit the football club long term.
Okay, so there was a couple of very specific points around the stadium, and I don't think we quite pinned down. And maybe this is too short a call to do this, but I still think there is
the night is yet young.
A lack of clarity on not precisely how, because I appreciate things can change, but the planned future of Southend post taking, building stadium and being there. What is it over and above football? You've said gymnasium, but is that it? It's gymnasium.
No, but we have a space in there for on match days that will sit down 1,000 people. So all revenue from that space throughout the course of the other 13 vacant days for weddings, functions, hospitality, whatever you want it for, it's great space. It has the ability to be broken up from open for 1,000 people to being divided into 4 rooms of 200 or even smaller groups of 50. So all that is for the club.
Okay. So conferencing and
Yeah,
pop
absolutely.
concerts were initially. The pop concerts have gone, haven't they?
No, we could still have those, but I mean, I had this conversation actually with the council recently, but because we're now dealing with the Section 106 agreement, which limits, the stadium from. I mean, certainly, any concerts were held in the stadium would go for the benefit of the football club, but the competition at the O2, I think, restricts it. So if we had a couple of 3 functions a year, I think that we'd be doing quite well, and they wouldn't be, sold out for, 20, 30, 40,000 people, even though they could spill onto the pitch. It's not going to be like that, in my view, because I think the O2 will take it, when we haven't got social distances and all the restrictions we have imposed at the moment. But any income from those sources, of course, they'll be derived for the benefit of the club. And
who will own the stadium, Ron? Will it be the club, or will it be the development partners?
Well, I will technically own it. I mean, technically, because there won't be any debt on it. Are you asking me what will I do with it long term? Will I give it to the community? Will I give it to the council?
Well,
You have been asking me for 20 years, so I think that's a fair question.
No, I mean, there was a question at the end about long-term planning. None of us are getting any younger, are we? So
no, we're not. But
what happens next?
So if when one day, and it's not in the foreseeable future, I sell the football club, that person is very likely to want to own the stadium. What we've got to make sure we put in place is the security of the stadium for the income to go to the football club.
So why can't the football club own it?
Well, probably because when it comes to sell it, it'd be a more attractive asset for the person who wants to invest in the football club. He might want to build on it. He won't want the restrictions. He might want to increase the size of it.
No, but that's an advantage of owning it, not.
Yes, an advantage of an advantage to that person who would own it, and I would want to keep our options open in that respect, because I don't know what the future holds.
Okay. We've done income streams. Hold on a second. There's one very specific question about development work beginning at Roots Hall before Fossett's Farms.
No, it won't.
Complete, whatever that, obviously not.
That's absolute no. It's in the. It's not even in the 3rd phase of development.
Okay.
But no development will start at Roots Hall until the club has moved.
Okay.
But just put pay to rumours, because I heard a rumour we couldn't get the safety sticker. What a load of codswallop that was. People start these rumours, get everyone wound up, and then there's no truth in it in the first place. By the time it's gone around the houses for 2 months, everyone thinks it's true, and it's just not. So.
Well, that will bring us back to communication, which I think is our next.
Well, it doesn't matter, Paul, does it? Sometimes, whatever I say, they end up saying, "Well, I don't believe him." So I have to wait for 6 or 9 months to go by, and they look back and they've forgotten by then and say, "Oh, actually, it never did happen, did it?" Oh, yeah.
But I think communication is more about just making statements. As I don't know if Dan wants to read his questions, or I'll read them. But this is I think going forward, we'd like to help with this, because
I know, I recognise
very much you making a statement responding to something negative. It's been like that for a long while, and there may be lots of other reasons for it, but that's how it appears to the fans. And it doesn't really matter what you think, because that is the reality. That's what the supporters think. And you just said it. You say something, no one believes you. Well, let's help that change. But you've got to be open and honest with us, I think, and involve us a bit closer with some of the things that are going on than you have been over the last.
But I welcome that. I welcome the engagement I'm having. I mean, it is, in many respects, it's a privilege, isn't it, to get to know many, many people around the subject that we all love, their football club, my football club. Of course, I love that. I mean, I suspect the majority of views that be expressed tonight will probably be quite sensible, but because you will talk amongst each other. But, there are some idiots out there, aren't there? Let's face it, who say things just to wind people up.
Yeah, sure.
I recognise that, and more stupid am I, I tried to persuade people to, the way life really is and what we're trying to do. But in terms of communication, I feel that it's been difficult during this lockdown period. I think this works. The communication you have through the Shrimpers Trust liaison meetings was good. I've never been involved in that for 20 years. So it's always been, Jeffrey or now Reese and taken up the mantle. I think that's been helpful because it's difficult when it's not. But I am absolutely open to any medium of communication that this group would suggest, and I would love to help that too.
Yeah, well, just one final point on the state, and then we'll move to communication, because there was a couple of good points, I think, there. But very specifically, will the owner of the football club be charging the football club rent at the new stadium?
There'll be a lease like there is now, and there has been a lease since Delancey days.
Yeah, sure.
But no rent. Well, it's really important because, but no rent has ever been charged. No rent has ever accrued, and rent has been written off.
I think rent accrued, didn't it? But not paid. I think we saw.
That's right. So yeah, accrued, but then it was written off.
Yeah, sure. So.
But see, it's quite dismissive, isn't it? Not view per se, but so yeah, sure. So the rent up until that time, not the total rent, was 6.86 million. Now, I could absolutely justifiably maintain that debt against the football club.
Yeah, sure.
But part of my objective is to actually clean up its balance sheet along with new stadium. So it does attract the ultimate investor to build, I guess, Southend and fulfill it. So ambitions, because that's what I want.
Yeah, we agree, and we're all thankful for that, Ron. But
well, no, he doesn't just say, but people say, oh yeah, it's only money between one company and another. No, it isn't. It's really not. It's real money, tangible money that should be paid and would have been paid.
Okay, so is it getting right? I get it, and I agree with you. So,
and that's only half.
No. Going forward, then. So the new stadium.
So the same. So the same situation will subsist, and if the club. And the reason it's there, Paul, that if the club was successful and it was in the championship, and who knows what might happen, and it had either windfall from, I'm not saying this is anyone's thinking at all, it's just that this is the reality of life, that if there was, massive windfalls from either a restructuring of the Football League, which I think will happen, player sales or getting into the Premiership or something of that nature, then you would have the ability to pay off some of those debts, if that's what the decision was, if that's what somebody wanted to do, without harming the progress of the football club. That's the point. So rather than just, I wrote it off 6.7 million prematurely, if you like, because I wanted to do what was the right thing, because it continues to accrue, but I still, whilst I'm in control, have the ability to write it off. If I sold the club, I would probably end up writing the balance off. In fact, when we move, that is my objective.
But what I just heard there was that you will charge us rent. You probably won't. We probably won't pay.
Well,
let me finish. Let me finish.
Charged but not paid.
Okay. So the same thing will accrue is what you said, but if actually we suddenly got a load of money, you might take it. That's what I think you just said.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, that's what I heard. Sorry, I must have got confused.
Well, you mean if we sold a player for 10 million, would I take 5 million back?
Well, yes. Okay. Well, would you?
I probably would pay down some of the debt, but not in those proportions.
Okay.
Less than that.
No, that's fine.
And if anyone can identify that £10 million player, do let me know, won't you? So I don't think it's anything. It's not even in our thinking, because really, all I want to do is survive this year, get in big, and then grow the club in a new stadium with a management I can trust, and get back to where we were.
Okay, let's cut it there. Except for, guys, any comments, questions on that specific point, or any of these points on the stadium? Or should we move on to
I'm
community?
not surprised that no one asked me why I haven't been in touch for the last 6 weeks. I mean, it's not really amusing, but
Haven't you been ill, Ron?
yeah, I tore the artery in my neck through coughing through COVID.
Oh, how are you now, though? You okay? With a little due respect, I don't want you falling off your perch, please.
No, I don't think I don't think there's any danger of that now, but it happened on New Year's Eve. So yeah, there was, and I've been coughing, but I tested positive on 21st of December, 23rd of December. I got the test results. So on 24th, I started to feel ill. I was coughing, and it got worse. I got severe headaches, and I don't, despite being chairman of a football club, I don't have high blood pressure, but I did on those, well, probably throughout that week before I knew it. But when the ambulance arrived, it was 220 over 120, whereas normally I know I'm about 130 over 80. So that was very severe, and coupled with the coughing, I tore the carotid artery. Well, what you got, two of them, one on either side of the neck. And it's very severe. Yeah, it could have been hugely worse. But so the first thing the hospital did was put me on blood thinner, and of course that has its consequences as well, because if you cut yourself, it doesn't stop. So I've had a couple of events like that as well. But so I'm recovering, but it won't. The artery may take several months. To actually, it self-heals. They can't stent it in any way because they can't get into it. Don't like to do that. That's like they only do that in extreme circumstances. So it will self-heal. They could take 6 to 9 months. So I just have to be not cautious, really, I suppose, because the medication's looking after that. But in order to ensure that heals without problems, then I'm on blood thinning tablets, which won't stop until the artery is healed. So I've got another scan. I had 6 scans last month, and I got another scan at the end of this month. And we hope that within 2 months, we'll see the artery start to begin to repair. But it might be another 3 or 4 months beyond that. So that's a sort of. But you know, I'm under really good care. It hasn't changed my working life terribly much. Only I did say to Paul, look, I'm working sort of 5, 6, 7 hours a day, and I'm trying to finish at about 3, 4 o'clock, because the neurologist said, look, you're on half battery, don't run it out. So as it happens, I've come back to normal working life now. But I did say to him, look, can we finish at 7? But I feel fine. And that was it, really. So my apology if anyone thinks I've gone missing. I didn't go missing. I still go to most games, and I'm still 100% committed to Southend United Football Club. So I'm not about to fall off the perch, although I am into ornithology. So if I was going to die, then that'd probably be a good place to be. That's it, really.
Thank you. I've picked up a couple of specific.
But just, Paul, just before we say that, on that, Ron, obviously you're not running on all cylinders now. Who's in effective day-to-day control of the club then? Because I know your son has been quite heavily involved in the stadium and this sort of thing. No, is he the heir apparent, or
no? You
still basically controlling the public strings?
I think you could ask the staff whether I'm in control of the club. I am, and I wasn't on all cylinders, but I think I am now.
Okay. Well, just your help is important as well.
But Jack has got no involvement. I mean, he could be on this call, and you'll see he's as passionate about the success of the football club as everybody else. But I would discourage him from ever being chairman of a football club.
Can I just finish off the stadium stuff? Could you just give us an update on what's next? Any planning meetings coming? What's the next step?
So there's 2 things in the council's mind that the biggest thing that the town has had, probably ever. and that's Better Queensway and Fossett's Farm, together with Roots Hall, because the applications are linked along with Rochford. So Better Queensway is expected to go to Planning Committee in March next month. It was going to go this month, but there's been a bit of slippage. And that will go under a single item agenda. So it's not like a full committee as it might be with, say, these number of people. Discuss it a larger diverse agenda. It just be totally focused on Fossett's and Roots Hall. And we expect that to go to a committee date in April. I don't think it will get caught up in what's the period of elections, because elections are going to slip. So I'm pretty confident that it will go to an April committee. You saw what was really very important, all the financial considerations being discussed. I know there was some antics on that, but by members in December. And that followed the process of approval from the previous March. So, councils don't really work in mysterious ways. They're quite transparent in their committee meetings, and you can see what the debate. And you saw that in December, and that we got approval. You do get into party politics at times, which we can accept that. But I think that the council, the members, are a good group of people overall, and they all support the prospect of the club surviving and growing. And to achieve that, they recognise that Roots Hall will it's end of its life, so it has to have a new stadium.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move on just to communications? Any objections? Okay, I'm going to literally just pretty much read what Dan sent me, which I think sums up the mood generally of all the points that were sent to me about communications, including I guess some of my own. So I'm just going to read this. So it's going to be a bit bland. So main concern, communication between the club, including Ron and the fans. I feel this has been Ron's weakest area in many, many years, and one which I think opens himself up to a lot of criticism from the fans. In short, and I'll expand on it during the meeting, please do, Dan, we don't hear from you often enough, and it's normally reserved for response to negative news, which is something I mentioned earlier, or to dispel rumours. It becomes more of a statement rather than actually communicating with the fans.
Yeah,
I feel this somewhat alienates the fans, especially at a time when unity is key. It'd be great to have some form of regular communication. This is a bit of that, but perhaps not quite right. To show that it's not all doom and gloom, because that's how it feels for the fans right now. And I think that pretty much sums up.
I agree with all that.
What do you think?
I agree.
So how do we? Maybe Dan would like to add a comment, perhaps to that point before we take that further.
Yeah, I think if there was something that the protest group did, was to make me think more about communication with the fans and how we could achieve that. And it's true that I don't have much time, but that's no excuse. So what we have thought about doing, and I didn't know you specifically going to ask that question to your email a couple of days ago, but is extending that forum beyond what you do as a liaison group, to have me or a representative on like a Thursday, we thought a Thursday surgery, so that questions could be asked a bit like this, but continually, and it will become something that Southend United does every Thursday. You can go on to a forum a bit like, because let's face it, none of us knew about Zoom and team calls before this happened, did it? And it's great, isn't it? It's a great communication tool. Why wouldn't it continue? I used to be in London 3 days a week. I won't be in London if it opens up again. I'll use this. We all do. For the whole life on it. And therefore, not only would I be in attendance on that day, but say Mark Mosley will be, And then we'd have, staff, including backroom staff, whom, you never hear of. Ricky Duncan, people from the academy, Craig, to ask questions. So and beyond that, I mean, I think that would be a good forum and a good start, and nothing can be hidden. But I'm really open to any ideas that anyone will have as how we could expand that, so you get to know what's going on in your football club. Statements is true, isn't it? If there's a rumour mill saying something that's not correct, we want to correct it. Some people might say, and I've had this voice before. You're overexposed. So some people say, well, actually, we're hearing from you too much. So it's difficult to get that but if we had, and I don't know any other club that does it. It's a bit like MPs, don't they? On Saturday they have a surgery where people pop in and see them, but they probably get through 6 or 8 people in the course of a Saturday morning. But this would be open to a whole host of people. It needs thought as to, the questions they're going to be asked and how it's monitored and controlled.
Yeah.
But if there was a small committee, including me, maybe not every Thursday, but 3 or 4 people, where questions could be asked the football club and a whole range of subjects, and then maybe we had a second, because we can replay it, and then post the questions and the answers for everybody else to see, and then that may form the basis of a question for the next Thursday, and then a continual process. And I did do some notes on this, Paul, actually, about in early December. And maybe I should just let you have it for some further thought and engagement on that, and we could implement that pretty sharpish, maybe as early as March, and I'd be happy to do that. I've really got nothing to hide. I mean, people say, "Oh, don't tell us anything." That's a load of codswash, really, because I mean, I only want the same as what you want. I'm the one that gets us equally miserable on the Saturday afternoon if we lose, and it rolls into the next time when we hopefully win. So it's been a very miserable year.
So I think that's a really good idea, Ron. I like that a lot. Can I just bring in Dan, because I know he's got another point to make on his questions.
Yep, of course. I don't know if you saw my email for the meeting, Paul, but there was a point about communications coming back from last meeting. We mentioned, and I don't want to bring it up too much now, it's probably set for later, but the embargo. When we spoke in the November meeting, you said it was along the lines of
phone call away.
Mm. And it turned out that, I'm assuming there was a lot more involved in that. But for us fans, we've been told it's a phone call away.
Yeah.
And then 2, 3, 4 weeks later, we've heard nothing back, and there's been no follow-up on that. It'd have been nice to have some kind of sort of communication put out on say the official website saying, I've met with concerned supporters. These were the points of interest and points that we need to address urgently. This is a short update, nothing too complex or too wordy, but something to address the fact that it's not just as easy as that. And I don't know if that was
no, it was true. When I said that, it was true. A phone call, and the phone call was to HMRC, by the way. And the reason being is that majority of clubs at that time had entered into a time to pay agreement. So we thought there's no reason why we would be excluded from that. And that was the call I was going to make. Only because people were breaching their time to pay agreement with HMRC, and the Football League agreed with HMRC that if you're up to date for the time COVID first lockdown, then there'd be a moratorium, which is now coming to an end this month. And you would not be embargoed because everyone was falling over and being embargoed. But we sat outside that because we had a 2 months PAYE, or I think it's a month and a half or something, to be paid, and I needed. When I made that statement, I didn't need to raise that cash. By the time the Football League changed, so I think it was on. I think we met on the 2nd, on the 9th of November. It was that sort of period, a few days.
But the issue is not that it happened.
Well, it is, but it is.
Well, no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Wait,
The issue is you said a simple phone call, then didn't.
No. Let me finish, because it is that, because the industry, HMRC and EFL, were in a state of flux. Now, even though they set that rule, it may have been possible for us to come to an agreement regardless. So those discussions went on longer. In the end, I paid the money instead. But if I'd said anything in the meantime, I would have shot myself in the foot with either HMRC dealing with them or maybe the Football League. You know, the rules for the conduct of football are obviously in a rule book. They can't just unilaterally change them whenever they want to. But that you'd be amazed how many rules have changed through COVID. They've necessarily had to, because we couldn't operate. We shouldn't. Some people say we shouldn't be operating now because there's no revenue.
So this subject is communication, and regardless of any of that, and I agree with it, and you told me some things which you told me not to tell anyone, that's fine. The point is 9,000 people heard there's a phone call tomorrow, we're out of embargo, and then it didn't happen. All that stuff happened, absolutely. But you needed to say, I made a mistake, or things have changed, or something. You needed to say that the next day.
I can accept that. I think, with hindsight, I should have said, negotiations are ongoing. We haven't been able to conduct the discussions in a positive way that we hoped for. And they'd say, well, why did you say it in the first place? Well, because at that moment in time, it seemed like a good idea.
I know. But that's fine, isn't it? But there was nothing. It was radio silence.
Yeah. Well, forgive me, I got it wrong.
Okay. So on communication, I really like the idea. I think we've scolded you enough about it. I think that what we'd all like to do is help, really, and I think your offer to do the surgery is good. I think that doing things like this regularly until we can meet personally are good as well. And obviously, I knew you. Also, you told me not. You did also tell me not to tell anyone you were ill. So that. Yeah,
and you're very good. You're very good. I mean, maybe I should tell you to tell the world.
It's being ill, it really isn't. I think people, you're a human being. People appreciate that, stuff goes on.
Hey, that's a compliment. I've been called that before. Yeah, I don't always get it right. I think if I had more time, one of the subjects would be CEO. But the caliber of CEO, and I do want a chief executive officer. And we will have one, but I do not want one to come to the football club when we're failing on the pitch, because that's a different type of person I would attract. When we can actually announce, we've got planning consent, so it's not very far away. Once we've got resolution to approve, my outlook on that will change dramatically, and I will do my best. I mean, I've had somebody in mind, as you know, for a long time, and he may still come if I still want him. But if not, when we announce the plans, it's a very, very different project to being at Roots Hall when you're bottom of League Two. If we stay up, we're in League Two and we're building a new stadium. It's a very exciting time for this football club. And that's what no one's seeing. But then, of course, that's my fault because maybe I'm not communicating it. But equally, I can't compromise the council, because until they make those decisions in our favour, I can't, obviously I am in this conversation speaking publicly. They have showed their incredible support for us. And I hope that will continue. And if it continues in a resolution to approve in planning, then the world is very exciting for Southend United.
Yeah, okay. So I have one more sort of general point on communication. I would say some of the things you put out, they don't read that well from this side of the fence. And, maybe there's
Maybe I didn't get O level in grammar. I'm not sure.
No. I think the grammar's fine. It's the I hesitate to say pompous, but sometimes it comes across as we're all idiots, and of course this, that, and the other. And I'm sure you don't really.
No, of course I don't. If I thought that, I wouldn't be here, would I?
No, but there's a potential filter. You have a filter in potential here with a bunch of people who want to help, and it just strikes me sometimes you don't use people how you should, because you on the club think one thing, but we might think, why is that a good thing for the fans? We're the people that accept all your decisions and like it or lump it, but why not run more of them through us?
Well, I suppose the surgery will help.
Yeah. Good point.
And I did think actually the monthly liaison meetings helped that point too, particularly when Jeffrey was involved in it.
Yeah. Well, there's two levels there. Of course, we had the trust one, and then there's the sports group one as well. But of course, it's really taken a hit with the current crisis. We've not had a liaison for a long time, although we do have one this week with Reese, I think. If it's still
I think everyone's input to a surgery on a Thursday is a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Someone sent me a video, and I've just seen it come up from Dan as well. The Walsall chairman put out some sort of video message today, I think, and it seems to have gone down quite well. Have you considered that kind of approach?
Yeah, we have. I think that the sort of communication tools are outstanding now. I thought about that. It's a case of, I think I would prefer to have a more generalized. I mean, that's like making a statement, but obviously in a video. But where you get the real answers is asking deep-rooted questions about your football club. And I think that there's a lot of people in the club, not just me on the ball, but other people who would be pleased to give their view and for people to understand what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, let's put it, if you had Ricky Duncan here, he wouldn't necessarily be talking about people who we're going to sell. He might be talking about people who we've sold and where income will be coming into the club as a result of the sell-on. I mean, that happens much more than probably fans appreciate. We sell kids. And it's not because we necessarily want to sell kids, because we don't. But when somebody knows that Man City's in for them or something, or Arsenal, it's very difficult to persuade them to stay. And because we've got this solidarity fund that comes to the football, which I condemned 12 years ago, but now it's coming to bite everybody. Everyone's thought, well, solidarity fund to get I don't know, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 a year from this fund. But of course the quid pro quo for that is that they can come and steal our youngsters for peanuts. But we do well in the academy, and we've got a number of players out there who might come back and give this football club hundreds or maybe even millions of pounds in the future, which is great. And so you can't look at the academy as a moment in time either. It's been a long-term investment that's cost me a huge amount of money, but we do have an assembly line. And fortunately, we've had Ricky Duncan around us for 15 years or something. And actually Mark Bonner, of course, of Cambridge. I must admit, I never thought he'd make a manager. But by his comments in the Echo today, he doesn't, manage his comments very well. But whatever. So we've got, a stable academy that's successful, that will only grow under the new plans and new training ground. And as a consequence, that should continue to be long-term income for the football club, probably, Paul, beyond what you can make from the stadium. And I think Bill will dismiss that and forget it. And I think if Ricky was here, he'd be waxing lyrical about it, because it is very successful.
The salary cap was we've drifted into other. I'm just conscious of the time, Ron. So There's a couple of other things that
Don't. I'm here. I'm here to answer what we'll say here as long as it takes.
So how does this affect us, the salary cap, or doesn't it?
It doesn't affect us this year. Of course, the salary cap has now been. You would have read last week that the PFA won the appeal against the salary cap, so that's been abandoned. The intention was, and again, I think this was a knee-jerk decision by the EFL, imposing a salary cap to try and get the survival of the lower leagues. We all knew that the championship clubs would never agree to it. They wouldn't even agree to an 18 million salary cap. So they've agreed to nothing. And therefore the disparity between, and I said, look, this is PL2 coming around the corner. I've been reassured by Rick Parry on that many, many times that couldn't happen. Well, it may not happen in reality, but if there's no salary cap on the championship, and you've got 2.5 million on League One, then if you get promoted, you've got to increase your investment by a huge amount of money to be able to compete. So I actually, probably in the minority, supported the PFA. The likes of Barrow and Harrogate and some of the other smaller clubs, they would always vote for a salary cap because it enables them to compete better. But clubs like Southend, with our potential, we don't want salary cap. So you know, we've stayed within it because we have to this year. And I think the investment in players has been quite good. You know, we've got a couple of players training with us right now that when I speak to Mark after this call, I know he'll be talking to me about it, and we'll see where that leads. But I would support him if he wanted it. So we're not going to breach that salary cap, basically. And don't forget, it excludes under 21-year-olds. And we had the early part of the season a lot of under 21s. So they're out of it. They're not counted. But we've still got the benefit of the Eggbys of this world when he comes back from his hemi.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just missed a point. James, do you want to make your point on communication? Apologies.
That's okay. So can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just I know we've moved forward, but just moved back again. I just wanted to add about the communication side of things. I feel like it kind of boils down, Ron, to the club being proactive rather than reactive sometimes with its communication. I feel like it's more on the reactive side of things, and that, you know, you're dealing with a situation where, you know, we're all passionate about the football club. And I know that you've grown passionate about the football club over the years too, but where a lot of the reactions from fans come to is from the same place as everyone. It's just a deep-seated love of the football club that for many of us goes back a couple of generations perhaps. Yeah. And I think that you're dealing with a situation where things on the pitch have been pretty crappy, obviously, but things off the pitch haven't been great either. And it causes a toxic atmosphere when we're not getting updates from the club. And I feel like that toxic atmosphere is just dragging everyone down even more. And that by being a little bit more proactive and trying to kind of communicate better with us, to nip any rumours in the bud publicly as early as you can and things like that, I think that will kind of lift that toxic atmosphere a little bit, which I think we're all suffering from, and I think it's fatiguing us as well to a certain extent.
Do you think, James, this hasn't been helped by us all being in lockdown?
Yeah, I think there is probably an aspect of that, but you know, I spoke about it with you briefly on the Zoom chat I had with you a couple of months back, that I you know, and I think people agree with me that communication has been an issue going a fair bit further back than COVID, and I think that the toxic atmosphere amongst the fan base at the moment, which kind of breeds this atmosphere of suspicion and distrust, and you know, it's not a good situation to be in, and I know it doesn't, you know, that doesn't necessarily reflect well on yourself, but I think that goes back beyond COVID, and I think that just better lines of communication will help with that.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can remedy that by what I've suggested, but I need to feed those ideas through somebody. Are you happy I'd do it through Paul for him to circulate what we have in mind?
Yeah, I think so. If Paul and everyone else is happy with that as well, then yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
So I pretty much, well, there was a couple of very minor things, but I pretty much got to the end of the summary of the points. So if I've missed any feelings from anyone, please, maybe now's the time to, just shout and.
Well, can they say it nicely rather than shout for me? Please.
Sorry, Ron, I missed that. What did you say?
I said, well, do they have to shout? Can't they just say it nicely to me?
I see. Okay. No. So, have I missed something? Anyone, please hand up or? Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Tell us about Nile Ranger. Don't hear about his car. Is he signing? What's he doing? Is it all a big joke or what?
No. He's been with us for I think 10 weeks now. He wasn't fit. Niall is an unusual character. He's never stopped being in touch with me. And
is he after petrol money?
Well, for his car, my car. So he wanted to get his career back on track. I mean, we all know that. But most people wouldn't touch him with a barge pole for all his antics over the years. The only club who's likely, because we understand him probably better than most, would be us. At the last forum we had, I said it won't be Nile Ranger. Mark, I'm not going to make this into a public comment, Chris, because it's a matter for Mark to make that decision as to whether he uses Nile Ranger. Niall has got fitter. He's not match fit now, but I think the majority of this forum would recognise that what we're missing is a strong, fit, big guy who can run and score goals. And if his temperament wasn't the way it is, he would be a godsend. So I said to Mark, if you want him to come in to train, I'll let you do that. But the minute he plays around, he walks. And he has been as good as gold, and he's turned up every day on time and done everything that Mark's asked of him. Whether that will translate to the same way on the pitch if he was playing for us, I don't know, but he has probably proved a few people wrong. He didn't train with the group for probably the first 6 or 7 weeks, and then he was introduced bit by bit. But of course, love your dog. Does that dog talk?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. She was playing up. Sorry.
Simon, was that you or the dog?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, she's very, very interested to meet the chairman. You see.
Yeah. Actually, I'm allergic to dogs. Unfortunately, otherwise I would desperately have one. So he's been good, and we all know he's very, very capable. We asked some of the senior pros. I did marked it separately, of course. What do you think of Nile Ranger training? And people like John in particular, JD, they'll say, well, if you can control him, and get him fit, you've got some player on your hands. Well, we all know that because we all remember the way he was when he played against Sheffield United, his first game. He was on a short leash then, and I think that's probably the answer for Niall. He doesn't realise his own ability, and if he did, maybe what he could do rather than some of the fringe activities, it's a shame. It's a waste of a great talent. And I've supported him much more than I should have done, only because I think from a humanitarian perspective, and also he'd get to an age one day and think, oh, if only I had been more dedicated to that. He hasn't made the most of his talent. At his age now, he probably won't, but he could certainly sustain a position in football, professional football. And Mark can see that too. So I don't think I can go any further than that, Paul, and tell you that
No, that's fine.
he continues to train with us. Will he play against Bolton? Who knows?
Oh, okay, so that's interesting. So it's probably closer than some of us thought. All right.
I think he's getting close to being able to come on for 20 minutes. But 20 minutes of narrow ranger when everyone else is knackered is a good weapon.
Yeah, sure.
But can I just say this, that any arrangement it might as well be day to day, but certainly week to week. If he steps out, he would be gone.
Okay. There's a regular question that gets asked at every liaison meeting, but we've not had one recently, so I'm going to throw it out there now as I've been prompted. Salaries, are they all up to date? Is there any reason?
Yeah, all salaries are up to date. And in fact, we're actually up to date with every single player, even those deferments that, for instance, many clubs, and this is what I was alluding to. Many clubs deferred money under furlough. So it wasn't that they didn't actually put football on furlough where we did. 6 clubs, 7 players. They deferred money to their players and made it conditional upon who will be back in stadium and at a certain level. So they entered into an agreement with their players. We didn't do that. I deferred some money under furlough, but it's all been paid, so everyone's up to date. We haven't got a continuing debt to our players like many clubs have.
Wow, okay, thank you. I think I'm done in terms of all the points. So would anyone else like to ask something? I sound conscious of time, Ron.
I'm still here.
So I just had a prompt about Harry. Is he still at the club? Furlough?
Yeah, well, he's back on the grass now. It's last week. You mean Harry Lennon?
No, Cipriano.
Oh, he's still here.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both here.
There was some. He might not be, wasn't
Why do you think Kip's gone? He's not making the first team, is he, right now? But he's.
No, but that's.
But
Yeah. Lots of people aren't making the first team. So.
No, but you change to the first team every day, and I think that's, if you look at it, to put the whole rebuilding process in context. We've signed a lot of players. A lot of players have dropped off. Some will continue to be with us, others won't. But we are at a rebuilding phase, and Mark said Rome wasn't built in a day when he first joined us, and unfortunately it's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. It does take time, and even some of the signings, like Sterling from Tottenham, was a total failure, and Mark recognises that. He didn't get everything right, but the majority of the people he has signed. And I think that Sean Hobson, for instance, I think is a good, young, committed player. And I think that he's done wonders, really. I like him.
The last question I'm going to ask before I think we should call it is, and it's just been prompted to me, so I'm just going to read it. What's the plan of action till the end of the year? Survival for the fans is paramount. What are your thoughts on how we drive forward for the last 18 games?
I think not just because we've had a good week, but I think that's the culmination of some people coming back and some new signings. And I think that we've got momentum. You see, there are people that we're not seeing on the pitch right now. I mean, I mentioned young Egbury. I mean, he's got a heart of a lion for a little kid. And he may not always have the talent, but he really tries. And there's some other people who are not with us and been around us. And Macca is a great influence. He almost made Cambridge. He went on the coach. In fact, I called him on Saturday morning to see whether he would go up there. He said, I'm on the coach. All right, I said, I'll see you up there. So I went to the hotel and chatted to the players before the game, or talked to the players before the game rather than chatted. And you know, the spirit in the camp is really strong, and that's why we wouldn't have, if Niall Rage was going to affect it, he doesn't really, but they're not around the training ground. So the main objective is to keep that spirit tight and that belief, and I think that Newport and Cambridge have helped that. Obviously, we had a couple of 3 signings coming in, so the Arsenal boy will be back with us. Probably his first game is March the 3rd. And we may sign Ricky Holmes, we may sign Jay Simpson, and we've got Niall Ranger around us. So I think the culmination of those that have just joined us, so in the January window, plus another 3, is another dimension to push us back up and give us a bit more in options. And we're playing Saturday, Tuesday going on. The other teams will get worn out by that, and we will have the opportunity to freshen it up. So that's part of our strategy over 18 intense games. I'm not going to try and predict what will happen, but I think that if we show the intensity that's been coming, I know.
At least it's still to play for now. We were dead and buried, weren't we? A few weeks.
Yeah, no, it's definitely still to play for. I think there's a great deal to play for. I went up to Grimsby, and that was a very grim day. I think I can't say, I don't necessarily think we should have won, probably with a better team in terms of quality. But the pitch was shocking, shouldn't have been played really. And I think then the 3 home games was just a massive, massive disappointment. And Port Vale just crowned it. But you know, if he'd won, and I think he expected to, if he won 2 of the 3 games and perhaps beat Grimsby, I know we can always say this, but 9 points would have been so different, because our form for the preceding 6-7 games was like playoffs, wasn't it? And I think that we've got enough around us, and since then we've actually strengthened it. So I think that we will have the impetus. I mean, if Cambridge are the best around us, then they're not good enough, are they? And Newport, they're not great either. In fact, there's no one standing out in this league. So provided we can keep our momentum, our people that we want to start fit, and we can add a couple to it, I think it gives us a chance.
Right, 2 more snuck in, and then I promise we'll end, Ron. Physio update. The last meeting we did talk about that, and
we've got a new charter physio who's been with us, I think, a month. Okay,
going well.
I have no announcement then, Ron. That's good news. We like that. That's good news. Why didn't you announce it? You know, something on the website, that sort of thing.
Okay then. Well,
we're struggling for good news here, mate.
I'll get that done tomorrow then. He's a good guy. You like him.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
About 35, 40. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. And there is a sort of feeling in the country that things might be opening up. Have you heard anything about fans back?
I suspect that once schools go back and they start to focus on hospitality outside, there'll be a couple of thousand fans back. So those people who have got season tickets, which I think about 1,600, will get, they'll be there, plus the other 500 that we can sell.
So that's March the 8th news then?
I think, look, I've got no inside track, Paul, and I would tell you if I had, but I think it looks to me that by the end of March, we could have fans back in stadium.
Oh, good. Okay.
But don't quote me, because I haven't discussed it with Boris today.
Right, there's probably a few other things that came in, Ron. What I think I'm going to do, unless anyone objects, is I'm going to put them in a mail to you for very specific points. So anyone who didn't get something asked and wants to, please send me afterwards. I've got a couple. I picked a couple up anyway.
Okay.
A couple of actions, I think.
And I'll send you my bit more than notes, actually. I did give quite a lot of thought to the forum for the Thursday surgeries, and then you can let me have your input.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. In terms of what we do with what you told us, I don't sense anything bar one thing you said to Chris that can't be published. Is that correct?
Oh, pretty much. Look, Chris texts me more than he does his mother. It's true, isn't it, Chris? I mean, probably 3 or 4 times a day. And sometimes, Chris, I don't say something because I don't want to give the opposition an advantage. And I think whatever I've said here, I know you can't run it past me, but if you think it's super sensitive, perhaps you could just give me a tinkle.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that's fine.
So other than that, Paul, no, that's right.
Okay, thank you very much. And Jim has correctly said, thank you, Ron. Hope you feel better soon. And I think that's, we all echo that. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Should we call it there, let you go to bed?
I'm going to be our manager now. So.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But,
He's going to go off and watch West Ham.
Is that true? Is he? Probably. But no, I haven't spoken to him for a few days. We've exchanged texts earlier today, but although I saw him on Saturday when I got on the coach just to talk to the players, I need to talk to him because he want to talk to me about the covered players that we may or may not sign. So watch this space, hopefully, and we'll make more progress. But thank you for your time too. It's all been useful. I think I agree with you wholeheartedly, unfortunately, that communication is poor. I said to Paul that, things that people's priority is not always my priority. What I was alluding to when I said that, Paul, was actually my health issues. So the shrunken time that I have, because normally I'm sort of 24/7, I couldn't get it all in. So I'm a bit behind the curve. But we also...
I had to remind Ron that I normally get sarcastic after 3 prompts, but he pushed me to 5 this time, which was a first.
If anyone knows Paul, sarcasm comes for the first. On that note, I'm going to leave you, but thank you again for your time, and we'll get this forum going, and we'll meet again soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Right.
Here's all. Okay, Paul, before you disappear, oh, he's gone. Okay then. Well, thanks a lot, everybody.
I'll see you sometime.
Yeah, I'll get the recording of this over to Paul so he can do whatever he wants to do with it.
Beaver, while you're on, one quick one, change the subject completely. Is it all right if I park on your front Wednesday, Thursday, if you're not there?
No. Yeah, of course you can.
Thank you.
There'll be a £10 a day charge.
Yeah, get it out of Julie next door.
Oh, bloody hell. What's she having done?
New boiler.
Oh, right, yeah.
All right.
All right then, guys. Thank you very much, everyone.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, all.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.